Sad asatvam upadaya. Sad asatvam upadaya. Chupayam sasichuryadaha. Chupayam sasichuryadaha. Tada samhatya chanyanyam. Bhagavat Shakti Chodita. Sadasatvam upadaya. Chupayam sasichuryadaha. Tada samhatya chanyanyam. Bhagavat Shakti Chodita. Sadasatvam upadaya. Chupayam sasichuryadaha. Tada samhatya chanyanyam. Bhagavat Shakti Chodita. Sadasatvam upadaya. Chupayam sasichuryadaha. Tada samhatya chanyanyam. Bhagavat Shakti Chodita. Sadasatvam upadaya. Chupayam sasichuryadaha. Word to word. Tada. All those. Samhatya. Being assembled. Cha. Also. Anyanyam. One another. Bhagavat. By the personality of Godhead. Shakti. Energy. Charitaha. Being applied. Sat asatvam. Primarily and secondarily. Upadaya. Accepting. Cha. Also. Ubayam. Both. Sasrichuhu. Came into existence. He. Certainly. Adaha. This universe. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Acharya Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jaya. Thus, when all these became assembled by force of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this universe certainly came into being by accepting both the primary and secondary causes of creation. Purport. In this verse it is clearly mentioned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead exerts his different energies in the creation. It is not that he himself is transformed into material creations. He expands himself by his different energies as well as by his plenary portions. In a corner of the spiritual sky of Brahmajyoti, a spiritual cloud sometimes appears, and the covered portion is called the Mahatattva. The Lord then, by his plenary portion as Mahavishnu, lies down within the water of the Mahatattva, and the water is called the causal ocean, Karanachala. While Mahavishnu sleeps within the causal ocean, innumerable universes are generated along with his breathing. These universes are floating, and they are scattered all over the causal ocean. They stay only during the breathing period of Mahavishnu. In each and every universal globe, the same Mahavishnu enters again as Garbhotakashaya Vishnu and lies there on the serpent-like Shesha incarnation. From his navel sprouts a lotus stem, and on the lotus Brahma, the Lord of the universe, is born. Brahma creates all forms of living beings of different shapes in terms of different desires within the universe. He also creates the sun, moon, and other demigods. Therefore, the chief engineer of the material creation is the Lord himself, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10. It is he only who directs the material nature to produce all sorts of moving and non-moving creations. There are two modes of material creation: the creation of the collective universes, as stated above, done by the Mahavishnu, and the creation of the single universe. Both are done by the Lord, and thus the universal shape, as we can see, takes place. Om Ganati Mrandasya Grananjana Shalakaya Chaksharan Militam Yana Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Come to Srimad Bhagavatam class. So again a short class today, 8:30. So we're discussing the conversation of Narad Muni with his father Lord Brahma, of where Lord Brahma is now answering, describing the creation, that he is only the secondary creator of the Visarga, not the Sarga. And so we, in the recent classes, the verses 21 to 31, was described first of all the Karanas Srishti. So it's like in Bhagavad Subodhani, it's nicely described and depicted also of how exactly the step after step, as we know, like Sri Nityananda Prabhu also mentioned that, but at each step that it only takes place then actually by the glance of the Lord. So that's one important fact to remember, that even there we see everywhere still the touch of the Lord is needed. And then now from yesterday we started verse 32, the Karya Srishti. And so one important point that I was thinking of is like why we want to understand that in more detail as well, with the technicalities, is that we, like the basic knowledge we get right from the beginning is that we are not this body, we are the soul, and the body is rather just like a machine, like a car, like in Reason Purpose. Prabhupada gave this analogy also that we are just like in a car, and we but by the power of the illusory energy, we just identify with the car itself, not realizing that we are just the driver, and not a single driver, but dependent on the main driver, on the super soul. But this, and of course, in Krishna himself tells, and towards the end of Bhagavad Gita, famously also, like how he's as the real Isvara, being there along with us, and we are just like moved about by material nature, as if situated in a machine, yantra. But to realize this kind of knowledge takes a long time, and one aspect which will help us for that is that we apply our mind and intelligence a bit more in detail to that, namely to understand how exactly, what exactly, first of all, our body is, like we know all the gross body as well as made of the the Panchaputta, 5 material elements, and then the subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego, what they are, and also how they are created, where they come from, and all of that we heard in the recent verses of where it's described, where like, for example, like briefly if we can recap that, basically like we hear, like in today's purport also, that when the Mahavishnu lies down in one covered portion of the Brahmachyoti, covered by the Mahatattva, that which first of all is called Pradhan, and then when it differentiates into the 3 modes, then it's called Mahatattva, and which further then transforms into the Ahankara, because Mahatattva, it's first we heard it's predominated by mode of goodness and mode of passion, and then further it gets transformed into Ahankara, where the false ego predominates. And at this stage then we heard that then there is the manifestation of those 3 energies of Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti. And from that then we can see how all the elements, and including our senses and our our gross and subtle body, where they come from. So we heard that from goodness, from the Jnana Shakti, comes the mind, and along with the 10 devatas who control the senses, and that we can connect to goodness because that's for maintenance. Like mind maintains our material existence, keeping us here, filled with the material desires, and the 10 devatas, obviously they are for maintenance, adidaiva. And then from the Kriya Shakti, mode of passion, come our intelligence, our very life air, prana, and as well as all the senses, the 5 kamendriyas and 5 jnanendriyas. And from the Dravya Shakti then come all the, which comes from mode of ignorance, come all the elements, like the gross elements, the 5, so which includes also the objects of the senses, the 5 tanmatras, as well as the 5 panchabhutas. And so if we analyze it like this, then we can understand, okay, that a bit more how our body is a machine, that we are, okay, I'm the soul, but then there's the mind, intelligence, all of that, and the senses and the body, and how that comes connected with the 3 different modes, and then like also then how why it acts like that, how it's subjected to that, and will help us also to be a bit more detached than not just a plain statement, yes, I'm not a body and this body is just like a machine. And so and further, like I said, even there in the Karana Srishti, we saw that every step only happens by the influence of time and as well as by the Lord's glance. And also then, like from yesterday's verse we started the Karya Srishti, where we heard, okay, from Karana Srishti all the elements were created, they're there, but they are not assembled yet, and thus actually no bodies can actually manifest. So no manifestation can take place at that point still. So that's then where the Karya Srishti comes in, where only by the Lord's energy then actually everything assembles, and like in today's verse, that's what we read this. Thus, when all this became assembled by force of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this universe certainly came into being by accepting both the primary and secondary causes of creation. So, and as we know, then still further, so that's how then it can manifest, but then even then, not only by the Lord's energy, but we know even He Himself personally has to be present also in every aspect of existence. And as we know, we like starting again from Mahavishnu, he can be considered the super soul of the Mahatattva, which he enters as the first step, and then, like we hear in today's purport, he then further enters each universe, the same Mahavishnu, but then called Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and which can then be considered the super soul of the individual universe. And then at the end, of course, we know as Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, he even enters the heart of every living being and even each atom, which means he is his localized aspect as Paramatma. He's personally present even in everywhere, like all-pervading also. And again showing like Prabhupada, that's how he starts off the purport, that it shows again that Krishna is a person and that eternally a person, like refuting the point of the Mayavadis, the mistake that they make, like we had that nicely explained by Ganeshan Prabhu in the CC classes also, where that is in more detail discussed by Mahaprabhu, where he refutes the Mayavadis in Varanasi. So because they make the mistake that they think the Lord is, and the energy, it's just actually everything is just Shakti. The Lord doesn't have eternal personal existence. And whereas we know from the famous verse from Shvetashvara Upanishad that Parasa Shakti Vividaiva Shruyate, that everything simply happens, manifests by the Lord's innumerable energies. And those energies get transformed, not the Lord himself. He, Gopinath, eternally is aloof and is personally enjoying, and also in innumerable personal forms and personal expansions, as Prabhupada tells in the purport there, that he expands by his plenary portions as well by his energy. And so yeah, that's one important main point that Prabhupada starts off in the purport with, and then he describes how Mahavishnu lies down and how while he is simply sleeping, all the universes come out by his breathing. And as we know from the analogy is given also there, that actually those universes, because I was thinking at one point that Mahavishnu, so he must be like so inconceivably huge, because if the universes are like from tiny pores coming out there, and you know one universe is compared to us is so huge, even our universe is the smallest one, but it is said to be 4 billion miles diameter. So then how big would Mahavishnu be then if that is the tiniest universe coming out of his pore? But actually the analogy is given that those universes, they come out in just like a banyan seed. They have the full potential of the universe, but they expand then after. And one point I was thinking in that connection is that like we might have the tendency that we don't want to read, study, or even hear like this kind of section that we are reading at the moment, those technical details of the creation, because we might even think that actually it's even higher devotion, expression of faith, if we simply accept, the Lord, we might accept, Krishna, he expands into also, and then from Lord Baladev, the Chatavyu and everything, then into Mahavishnu, and further Garbhoda Kashaya Vishnu and Kshetra Kashaya Vishnu. But that's enough technicalities. Then Mahavishnu, he breathes out, Garbhoda Kashaya Vishnu enters as Garbhoda Kashaya Vishnu, and then further expands as Kshetra Kashaya Vishnu, and somehow by his inconceivable potency it magically manifests. We might think, that's like a nice expression of faith, but actually, like we had it in a previous purport, where Prabhupada quoted Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, saying that if we actually care about Krishna, care about him as a personality, then we want to know everything about him. We don't want to know just about Ras Leela and all his sweet pastimes, childhood and whatever, but we also want to understand his Srishti Leela, how he, in detail, how he expands and how he brings about this amazing creation. Because even though material world, it's just a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, and the spiritual world is inconceivably more opulent and beautiful, but still, even the material world, there is so much detail, so much variety that the Lord gives us even for us as the prisoners, like Prabhupada nicely explained yesterday, how that's one main point we can understand by studying also these topics of creation and of the cosmos, of how much Krishna loves us, how much detail he puts in there, even though we are the ones who reject his love, who reject his association. We should counter our mind whenever we feel kind of bored or don't want to hear that, even though we might not fully grab every detail to remember it, but at least we should submissively hear it and understand it's also hearing the Lord's glories, which is our constitutional position. And then, when Prabhupada mentions then describes briefly how then from Garbhodakasha Vishnu comes out the lotus stem from his navel, and from that very lotus Lord Brahma appears, and this does call Swayambhu, because he doesn't have mother and father, but simply he's actually like part of this very lotus, and so Prabhupada tells that this Lord Brahma then creates all forms of living beings of different shapes in terms of different desires within the universe. He also creates the sun, moon, and other demigods. And I was like thinking then on this point from yesterday's put in connection that Prabhupada tells that it's kind of like our material life is kind of the Lord, like the Father is our Father who gives us the material world to play with, like toys, and because we are the rebelling kids, so he gives like as if he would give toys to a crying child to pacify him, because the child is so caught up in his rebellion and is not ready to listen to do actually what's good for him. So at least to still show some love, the father gives him a toy to play with, and in that way we can see from here also that in one sense Lord Brahma he's the first son of the Lord, the first child, and so he's the first child who starts playing, but he does it at a completely different scale, obviously, like we hear here today, that this Lord Brahma is the one who creates the whole universe from, obviously, after the Lord primarily created, but still he does then secondarily as the engineer manifested, which includes even like sun, moon, and all those powerful demigods like Indra, Chandra, and so on. And it's like, even just thinking of that is so amazing, like how can a person do that? Like for us, if you look at the sun, it's like so inconceivably more powerful than we are, and there is a Jiva who is empowered to do that. But still, essentially, he's doing the same thing. He's playing with the material energy rather than being at our ultimate home in Golok Vrindavan, where he's playing with Krishna. But of course we know our Lord Brahma is a pure devotee. He does that as devotional service. But yeah, it also should, if we remember those kind of things, then our tiny efforts and still thinking that if we want to claim credit for whatever we are doing, whatever we are achieving, it's completely insignificant, and so there is never a point to be proud of anything. We are fully dependent on the Lord, and that's how Prabhupada continues there. Then that still, even though Lord Brahma is so powerful, the chief engineer of the material creation is the Lord Himself, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9:10, where Krishna tells that this material energy simply works under His direction. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. And hitunana kantiya jagat viparivartate. And so that like in a later purport, then I remember reading today that Prabhupada tells that this Maya material energy, which is also so powerful, we know that like all the jivas in the material world, basically we are simply put into illusion, thinking we are the doers and we are great and everything, but simply like placed in a machine, moved about, thrown here and there, different planetary system, different species, by this material energy. But Maya herself, she's actually only one of the innumerable maidservants of the Lord, and she is not like, I mean, it sounds a bit harsh, but that's how Prabhupada tells there that she is not one of the favorite ones of the Lord, because her role is here to this unthankful task of putting the jivas into illusion, whereas she's just a partial expansion of the original maidservants of the Lord, who directly engage for his highest pleasure, as Lakshmi and even higher in the gopis, headed by Srimati Radharani, of course. And then Prabhupada concludes with saying that there's two modes of material creation: the creation of the collective universes, as stated above, done by the Mahavishnu, and the creation of the single universe. Both are done by the Lord, and thus the universal shape, as we can see, takes place. And I remember it's mentioned in a purport also that Srila Jiva Goswami says that actually those universes, as Mahavishnu breathes them out, and like I said, and they're tiny at that point, kind of like banyan seeds, but they exist in clusters and flow. So there's like these clusters then floating in the Karna ocean, where Mahavishnu lies. Okay, it's almost time. I'll wind up here. If there's any quick question or comment. Yes, bro.
With regard to the subtle body, we have mind, intelligence, and ego, possible. So mind is from the mode of goodness, and intelligence in the mode of passion. Can you understand that the possible is from the mode of ignorance?
Yeah.
And one more thing, how is that? The senses are made up of the mode of ignorance and passion. The mode of passion, senses are the mode of passion.
Yeah.
But we also know that the senses are made up of five gross elements, the whole body is made up of five gross elements. So how can we understand whether it's
well, they at least my understanding is that yes, the senses, like our ear and everything, yes, that's made of the five gross elements, but actually, I think Toshin Krishna Prabhu mentioned it recently, that actually the senses, like we hear here, there is something more subtle, not independent of it's just then they are manifested here, like the instrument is like that here in this form by the gross elements, but there's something higher. So we hear in Bhagavad Gita also the senses are superior to just normal gross matter. So, okay. Kantarachima Bhagavatam Ki.